What's up everyone, this is ZAJA with ZAJA Natural in the Beer Soap Company, and today I will be making another fluid hot process soap. I have a color scheme in mind for this. I want a dark blue with a really bright white. Now I'm gonna mix my own custom blue because all the blues that I do have are kind of bright. As you can see, this is a very pretty blue, but I want something that's a little darker. So what I'm gonna do is actually mix this with some activated charcoal. And I found these cute measuring scoops on Amazon. They come 3 in a pack for $6.99, and I like it because it's pretty versatile. It comes, you can adjust the sizes, and it goes down from to like half a gram to up to 13 grams. So I'll just show you right here. How it goes. Just trying to get into focus. So yeah, it goes all the way up to 13 grams. And so I'm going to get about 5 grams of the blue. And I think with use, these will be easier to slide up and down. There we go. So I'm going to get 5 grams of the blue. Seal that back up and put it away. And now I'm going to get 1 gram of the activated charcoal. And oh, I think my husband sent me a text. So let's adjust this to 1 gram. And then I'm just going to mix that up just by swirling the container. And it did darken up the blue quite nicely. I think that once it's inside the batch, it's going to be even darker. And that is such a pretty blue. Blue is actually my favorite color. I think that if I could make all my soap blue, I probably would. And it would definitely save me a lot of money as far as buying colorants, that's for sure. Okay, so now all of my oils are melted. I actually put everything that I wanted to use into this crock pot, and I left it on for about 25 minutes while I did a few other things, and everything's melted. So I'm going to go ahead and mix everything. I'd say the oils are about 160 degrees right now, and the lye is freshly mixed. And what I've done is I've mixed 600 grams of water with my lye, and I've reserved some water for my colorants. So my blue is back there, and I'm going to put some titanium dioxide into the batch to make that bright white that I'm looking for. I've also measured out 100 grams of sodium lactate and 100 grams of water mixed with sugar to make my own sugar syrup. So what I like to do is I usually just hand stir this because I don't like to stick the blender into there right away. just because it tends to splatter. And I do have my apron on, but by hand stirring it, it actually gets it to be a little thicker before I stick that stick blender in there. So I'll start by doing little pulses. That's little 5-second spurts, not even 5, until it thickens up. And what I'm looking for is a custard consistency. Once I get to that consistency, I will actually remove the stick blender and I will just let it sit and cook for a little while. I usually get the point where it turns into an applesauce phase by 11 minutes. I've done this so many times and it's never failed. 10, 11 minutes, boom, I'm at applesauce. And I find that it takes too long to get to where I want it to get to if I just use the crock pot by itself rather than using the entire crock pot with the cooking system. So I like to keep the crock pot itself on high at first, and I'll turn it on low. And the crock pot is actually on up until the point where I add my colorants. And you can always fast forward if you don't want to watch me stick blend this. It's going to be probably about 15 minutes of stick blending, but I will be posting a short and sweet video, and I will also be posting the cutting and planing and beveling of the soap once it's done. I found that if I actually wait until I have all the videos of every step, the video never makes it onto YouTube. So I'm actually going to just start putting these videos online as soon as they are made, and some of them will just be 1, 2, or 3 parts. You know, I'm Nigerian and we are famously known for making movies that have like 18 parts to it. So at this point I check for trace. And trace is when you swirl the soap on top, and if the soap kind of sits on the top, then it's ready. At this point, if I were just making a cold process soap, this would be where if I were going to, just pour straight into my mold, I can just pour it into my mold and walk away. If I'm doing a lot of colors, I don't usually get to trace. I just get to an emulsification, and then I do my colorants, and by the time I'm ready to pour, the soap is ready and at the state. But when we're doing hot process, we actually kind of want it to be a little thicker than this. It'll move it along. And so I'm going to scrape the stick blender off. And I actually keep a big bucket of water that's about 1/4 of the way full with some soapy water. And it helps me keep my stick blender clean in between batches so that I don't have to constantly go upstairs. I do not have a sink down here in my workshop, so I have to lug everything up 18 stairs every time. And so what I'm doing right here is actually sticking the stick blender into that bucket and running it so that all of the soap can actually come off. And you want to make sure you scrape the sides down. Oh, my husband just got home. I sent him to the liquor store to get me some Everclear and some honey wine because I am participating in a soap challenge this month. And the challenge is to make a soap that has a food and drink in it. And so I'm trying to win, hopefully, the advanced category. So we've got this honey wine right here. And oh my goodness, this stuff is so delicious. And he bought me some Everclear because I do plan on making some transparent soap later in the week. So we're going to just cover this up. And I love this crock pot. I wish that when I bought my crock pots, I'd actually just bought this kind of crock pot, because what it actually prevents is me having to use saran wrap, although I do use a tiny little bit to cover the hole. I'm trying to form a vacuum. But I like it because it has the little clamps on the side. So I just plop that on there and cover the hole, and it also helps with splatter, and you'll see how that works later on. So while we're waiting for this to do something, I'm going to go and get ready for another batch, and also to give some of my additives another zap in the microwave. When you're trying to make fluid hot process soap, what you want to do is keep everything either at room temperature or at least warm. And here I'm adding hot water to my blue color that I just made. And as you can see, it's very pretty blue with the activated charcoal included there. And I don't think it's quite as blue. I'm not sure if this is going to be as potent, so I'm going to actually add a little bit of blue and a little bit more charcoal. You can't see it, but that's what I'm doing right now. And if you look in the pot, you'll see that the edges are starting to bubble up. And the crock pot is currently on high. And right about now, we're about at the 11-minute mark. When you're making fluid hot process soap, you really need to pay attention to it. You want to make sure that you're there for every step. No walking away, no wandering off, no surfing your phone while you're waiting, because it moves fast. And if you don't catch it, you will have a volcano all over your table. So this is my yogurt. I didn't have any Greek yogurt, but I'm using whole fat yogurt. And I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see the bubbling and how the soap is starting to turn itself over. Now this crock pot is a slight bit smaller than the other one that I use, so I really have to keep an eye on it. My other one I think has 2 more quarts, so when the soap starts to bubble and turn over on itself, it still has room to do it without me having to constantly stir. But this one is a little smaller. So yeah, I have to just stand here and make sure that I don't get a soap volcano. And don't ask me how I know, because I've had soap volcanoes. The cool thing about hot process soap is that the soaps, while they do say they are ready to use right away, I don't believe that to be true. I believe that a really good soap, whether it's cold processed or hot processed or a melt and pour that you made from scratch, definitely benefits from a 4 to 6 week cure. So even my hot processed soaps will get a good 4 to 6 week cure after I make them. But the cool thing about it is that you can actually use the mold the same day again. What I'm going to do when I'm done with this batch is I'm going to actually let it set at room temperature, and then I'm going to pop it in the freezer for about an hour. And I'd say 2.5 hours later, I should be able to pop it out and cut it. I can't do that with cold processed soap unless it's a salt bar. So this is titanium dioxide. I have measured out 40 grams of titanium dioxide. I do keep my TD premixed in distilled water just because it just helps saturate the titanium dioxide a little better. And so then you don't get those white flecks that we really hate as soap makers in our soap. So soap's starting to bubble nicely now. And you're going to see a phase change. is going to go from this really delicious custard looking phase to a bubbly lava-like applesauce phase. Like I said, this video is long because I want to show you how long it actually takes to make fluid hot process soap. You know, some people say it's 10 minutes fluid hot process soap. I have yet to have hot process soap that was 10 minutes long. I don't know what the secret is. I wish I could figure it out and crack the code, but mine do not go by that fast. So I'm just watching it because I would love for it to just bubble over completely. But as I said, this is a smaller crock pot. So I'm going to definitely have to open this up and stir it. And this is a workout. And I'm using the cover as kind of like a shield because although it's not really bubbling right now, it can, and I am wearing an apron, but I'm just going to use that pot cover as a shield just for extra protection, because this is still active soap. As you can see, it now looks like kind of like applesauce, tapioca. And we're about at the 16th minute now. So we've got applesauce phase at minute 16. You're just going to want to keep stirring and stirring and stirring. This soap process is something that you don't want to do when you have the kids around or your dog or your cat or anything. Just put everybody away so you can focus. And my husband was a really doll. He took the kids to the pool and then he went and picked up our daughter from camp, and now they are at this swim meet. So I've got the whole house to myself. Again, my little accessory work here, working those biceps and triceps. So I've covered it, but I did not latch it because it moves fast and I want to be able to take that cover off as fast as I can. And I'm just going to keep spinning it and keep stirring it until I finally get that mashed potato phase, which means that the soap is done. And as long as it's still doing this, the soap is not done. There's still active lye in it, and it is not saponified. So how's your day? Let me know how you're doing. I woke up a little early this morning, even though I went to bed late, but I am actually really happy that I put my daughter in camp because it's actually helping me out. Usually when I wake up, I dilly-dally in bed, I'm surfing the web, I'm checking my gram, I'm checking Facebook. And now that she actually has to be at leadership camp at 9 in the morning, it's actually helping me get up and get my day started so much better. I went ahead and signed her up for the next part of the camp too, because I think that it's definitely showing in her patience. She's learned a lot of patience, especially with the 4-year-old, and just learning how to be calmer and a better older sister. And hey, it's getting me to the gym every single day because the program is through the gym. And so what I've been doing is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I actually do the Keto Gains 5x5 program. And it's where you squat, you bench press, you deadlift. And then on alternate days, you squat, you do some military presses, and you do pendley rows or rows in general. And then on my accessory days, I'm actually doing Peloton. My gym actually has Peloton bikes, and so we don't have to pay for the extra membership, which is awesome. Although I would really love to own one day at home, but I'm not looking forward to paying that extra $40 a month just to be able to do it. So it's really fun. We have like a little sign-up sheet. We only have 2 bikes out of the 40 so bikes there. So when we first got them, people were kind of battling over the Pelotons, and there was like this bureaucracy thing going on. And, I think some people felt a little entitled to the bikes. So it was hard to even get on. So now I've figured out that if you go early, nobody's there. So I've been doing that Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So yay, the soap is finally at the stage where I want it to be. And what I like to do is I actually stir in my utensils so that I can get any of the soap that could still be active with lye mixed into the soap. And then I stir and I scrape all the sides down really, really well. And I just give her one really good stir. The thing with the way the crock pot is shaped is that sometimes in the corners, even though they're technically no corners, but you know what I mean, there could be soap that's stuck there that has not gone through all the phases. And so you really want to give it a nice good stir and scrape all the sides down so that every single bit of it is done. And scrape the sides and then flip it over, fold it a few times. And at this point, the soap should be done. I like to let it sit for another 2 to 3 minutes covered and sealed so that the heat can definitely make sure that if there's any sodium hydroxide left in there, that it is completely done and has reacted with the oils and turned into the salt that we know is soap. So we're going to cover it up. And I'm going to actually wipe off the cover because it got a little bit of the soap on there. So what are your plans for the summer? I know some of you have children, some of you don't. But what are you guys doing for the summer? I would love to hear your plans. I'm hoping to take the kids down to Savannah for a week or 2. Maybe more like a week. But I'm hoping to take them down to Savannah so they can enjoy the beach. We don't have any beaches near where we live. And get out of town. We haven't been out of town in so long. My goal for next summer is to actually get out of the country and go somewhere. Maybe take the Eurorail and go all over Europe with the kids. That would be awesome. So my yogurt is still pretty much room temperature, and it's still nice and fluid. And the soap is nice and translucent. Now, there are many ways to test if your soap is ready. There are different tests that you can do. My tried and true is just tasting it. And if it burns my tongue, I know that it's not ready. If it just tastes like the sweet glycerin soap, then it's ready. So I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. And while the timer is on, I am going to go and give all of my additives another quick zap in the microwave just to get them warm again. We went and saw Brightburn the other day, and the song from the movie has been in my head ever since, so much that I had to download it on Apple Music, and I have been singing it, and I just keep going, I'm a bad guy, and the beat is just in my head, and I just can't get it out. I almost started humming it just now. So I am back. I've zapped the sodium lactate and my sugar water for about 25-30 seconds. And this is the point where I actually taste the soap. Cool it off. Definitely cool it off. And I'm going to taste it. And it's done. So now let's get to mixing those additives in and mixing the colors in. So first off, I'm going to pour in the sodium lactate. And then the sugar syrup. And even just pouring these two things in, the soap gets pretty loose, and you'll see. I swear these aprons that I bought were made for children, because they just like do this weird thing in the front where it pops out and doesn't lay, but they serve the purpose. As you can see, it loosened right up with just sodium lactate and sugar water. We want to make sure every single bit of it is mixing in. And I'm going to add that yogurt, and I'm going to turn the crock pot down because you don't want to cook your yogurt. You want to stir that in, and you're going to see the magic happen in about 20 seconds. Something about yogurt, I think the lactic acid just loosens everything right up. And at this point, it's like a thick traced cold processed soap. So you can really do whatever you want with it. Any kind of design that you want, you can do it. And I'm going to scrape everything down, make sure every single bit gets into the soap. And take a look at that. Look at how smooth it is. Okay, so we are ready to color. So I'm going to pour my blue section into that white bowl. I'm going to add the fragrance. And hot process is actually really great for those pesky fragrances that you might find you can't do with cold process. There are some fragrances that will turn your soap rock hard that you can't even get into your mold. Some fragrances will turn your batter into like a rice texture or separate completely. And those are great fragrances to actually make hot process with. Because at this point, the soap is cooked. Everything's reacted. So there's nothing for the fragrance to even react to. And I find that the fragrance is actually more potent when you do hot process. Okay, so I'm going to grab some cloths here so that I can grab the crock pot out. I'm going to actually try to find some silicone gloves for this next time I go to Target. Move that out of the way. So let's pour the TD into this part and make it nice and bright white. Now I've experimented with putting my hot process soap straight into the freezer right after I make it. And one thing I notice is that sometimes I get like a dip in the middle of the bars on top. And then the bars have like this dip and I don't like that. So I'm going to actually start letting them set up at room temperature first. And then I'm just going to put them in the mold just to release them from the mold. So now I've added that blue and you can see that it's that nice dark blue that I was looking for. And I'll put a description of the scent in the description box below. I'm actually really excited to see how this turns out as far as the swirls. It's so pretty. Alrighty, so let's move everything out of the way and grab the mold. And this is going to be a tall and skinny bar. I cut my bars at an inch and a half because I like nice big chunky bars. And these bars, you can cut them in half yourself when you get them, or I can cut them in half for you. I'm actually going to start offering two sizes. You can get the full size bar, which was about 7.5 ounces, or you can get a half bar. And look at how fluid that is. Now, I always want to give a shout out to all the hot process queens on here. There's so many videos that I learned from when making hot process. And YouTube is such a great resource. You know, people like Sharon Johnson, Shell Brookheff, Handcrafted. Very great resource for learning how to make hot process soap. And it is really truly an art form in its own. You know, cold process soap is so fun to make as well. But mastering different types of soap making just keeps you interested, you know. You know, blooper. Just scrape that back in there. It smells so good. I finally figured out the perfect recipe size to fill this mold without having a ton of soap left over or it not being full enough. And it works. You know, with hot process soap, sometimes I see us trying to do a design on top, and it's just I've learned that it's just better to leave it alone. Like this one, I should have just left it alone, but it didn't turn out bad. But at this next time, I'll probably stop right here because it has a nice smooth top now. And just scrape every little bit out. And I'll let the crock pot cool off for a little bit and then just wash it. And I will be making another batch tonight as well. So stay tuned for that one. I just love it when I figure out a process and I finally feel like I've mastered it. Except for right there, where I clearly didn't master my aim. So we are all set. And I'm going to take a skewer and just poke all those little pieces into the soap. You can see how fluid it still is. Very smooth. And hot process will always want to form a skin on top, so that's why sometimes you get those dry pieces. But if you were to scrape this top off, you'd see that it was still very fluid inside. So let's take a look. And at this, I don't remember if I recorded this part, but at this point I actually took the skewer and I swirled the soap by kind of going kind of vertical horizontal, like in an angle, and then I just turned the soap and I turned the top layer just a little bit. But if you can see how it's still jiggling in the mold, it's very pretty. just to make sure that the swirl on the inside is nice and defined. Let me show you. Very nice. It looks like the ocean. Alright, and that concludes this portion of the video. Stay tuned for the cuttings video. Thank you for watching.